Welcome to the Sound of Movement podcast. Today we are talking about athletic performance and really what the role of a good coach is, or more importantly, what the value of a good coach is. We're going to be talking about what your coach should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, and how you can tell the good ones from the bad ones. Stick around. It's time to rock, everyone. If you're new to the tribe, Rich is behind the mix. It's me at the table. I'm joined by, my name's Rad, if you didn't know. I'm joined by Phil and Nalesh, and we're Unity Gym, experts at turning driven people into athletes. Now, this episode is brought to you by the Unify Movement System, the only online program effectively balancing strength, flexibility, and fitness so you can unleash your inner athlete. You can get daily coaching by us, plus our epic Foundations Prep program and revolutionary structural balance blueprint to create your ideal program and optimize your performance. As a valued listener, you can use the link in the description to get your first month free. Also, I'm very excited to announce that this weekend we're going to have an epic 72-hour flash sale. The program that's going to be on sale will be announced tomorrow, so keep your ears out for that one. Now, before we get started, warm welcome if you're on the live stream in the UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group. Leave a comment and we'll send you some love. Remember that anyone can join and interact. And lastly, a shout out to our YouTube athletes catching the replay. Hit the like button to support the channel and subscribe if you like what you see. So as I said before, joining us today is Phil White and Nalesh Murty from ADPT Physio. How are you today, boys?
Very well. It's
Morning,
good to
guys.
have an episode back together. We haven't had one in a while. So
Yeah, it's been a while since we've all been at the table, isn't it?
Yeah.
Back at
Nalesh
it.
now has a small child, which is just
Yeah.
such exciting
Dad
news.
life.
Yeah, dad
Yeah.
life. 6 days old, right?
6 days, yeah.
And you had 6 hours sleep last night, so
It's
how good's
good.
that?
Last night was good.
Yeah.
Things are looking up. That's
Man.
double your sleep count from last week.
Man, you
Actually,
count,
this is double.
you count those nights as a blessing, man. After you've had your kid for a while, it's pretty cool. But you do get out of the woods, and it does start to become better. My son's 4, but you've got a long way to go before that.
I had 9 hours sleep last night, so I'm feeling...
Listen to this guy rubbing
And
it
clean
in.
no nappies.
Yeah, that's it. So today we're talking about, well, this whole week we're talking about athletic development, and where Phil and I had a chat before the show, and we talked about, what is it that that Phil and Nalesh could bring some real value to, and I think a really good topic is what the role of a good coach is, and basically the way that what a good coach should do is gradually increase load tolerance, prevent injury, and prepare the body for things to come safely. Whereas what a bad coach does is they usually do that poorly and people get injured. What do you reckon, Phil?
Yeah, I think it's all about starting with the end in mind. And I know that a lot of
I love that.
people who, start training in the gym, they definitely think about basically just trying to get all the results they can as quickly as possible. But I think where the coach can step in and really guide and bring that value in that coaching relationship is understanding what the goals are, what the person really wants long term, and then think about how do you build that step-by-step plan of getting there. And so often people just have an idea of what they want to do, they jump in there and they do it as hard as they can. Whereas it's as a coach, and I think physios really are like coaches. It's all about just building those step-by-step processes to get to where you want to be without injuring yourself, because that's the side effect of poor management.
Exactly right. The plan, and direction, and are they getting you ready to perform? Is the 3 things.
Yeah.
I would think a coach, physio, therapist,
Yeah.
whichever label you want to put on it, needs to have.
And we see it go wrong a lot. I mean, I was definitely somebody in my earlier days as a personal trainer, because when you're a personal trainer, the course that you do in the grand scheme of things is very small. It's a Cert 4 course in Australia, Certificate 4. So what's that? That's one level below a diploma, right?
Mm-hmm.
The next level would be a diploma.
Yeah.
So I think it was 8 weeks of study, doing 2 nights a week and 2 days on the weekend for 8 weeks. And you learn a lot, you do. But I remember finishing that course and then getting out into the workforce, being a personal trainer. People come to you with their goals, and I was just like, I really have very little idea of how to do that, but I'm going to write you a program and we're going to do it and we're going to hope that it delivers a result. And I certainly had no idea about increasing load capacity or managing load capacity. So do you want to, Phil, maybe for those of us that haven't, our viewers or listeners that haven't heard that concept before. Do you want to explain what load capacity is?
Yeah, basically, every structure in the body will have a certain threshold of load. So load can be either intensity of the force you're putting through it, so a heavy weight. It could be the amount of impact. It could be how quickly you're lengthening it under tension. So basically, it has the capacity to do specific work. And then if you exceed that capacity a little bit, you might get a bit of a twinge or a niggle, and if you keep doing that, you might develop a bit more of a chronic issue in that tissue, issue in the tissue. But then,
you didn't know
if you really acutely and intensely exceed that threshold, that's where the structure can get something more like a tear or a break in the bone, or an issue, a tear in the cartilage or whatever. So basically, the idea is with preparing your body for a particular sport, we've got to think about what kind of intensity and what sort of threshold are we going to need to hit when we're doing that activity. And then you got to think, okay, what is my current load capacity and how can I build that up? And the way that the body is capable of developing more load capacity is gradual increases in loadings, that progressive overload basically, which is the core kind of foundation of all strength training. So.
And it takes a lot longer than what a lot of people really sort of sign up for when they start a program, right? I've heard you say in the past, and let me see if I can get this right, that the adaptation from strength is the first adaptation that occurs. So the neurological adaptation, the ability for your body to just produce more force with what it's already got. And that occurs in as little as 30 days, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it starts happening very quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the adaptation to
basically, you've got a lot of muscle there that the body won't use unless there's a really, really strong neural drive, which is usually in the case of fight or flight, or intensive situations. And so strength training, if you're very new to strength training, you basically start to unlock strength just from being able to train your brain to activate more of what you got.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The second adaptation is the adaptation that occurs within the muscle tissue itself. So the hypertrophy of muscle fibers, and that occurs at around the 90-day mark. Is that right? Or that's when you start to see significant change? Yeah,
typically you think 6 weeks and plus, before you really start to see changes in muscle size.
46.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out the days, but
46. I know it's got the days, but typically it takes a lot longer than you think, which. I guess can feel a bit disheartening at the beginning. You're like, what? I have to do this for this long?
But that's not the one that really gets me, because this is something that I didn't understand. So at this point, let's say at the 3-month mark, 12 weeks, you're stronger. You can feel it. You know when you walked in the gym and you picked up the 10 kilo dumbbells, they were hard, and now you're picking up 20 kilo dumbbells. So you can feel that you're stronger. But the adaptation or the increase in load capacity in the connective tissue still hasn't occurred very much yet, has it? At that 90-day mark, at that 12-week mark.
Yeah, so typically with your passive structures, so your bones, your cartilage, your ligaments, basically that will typically be a 3-month plus before you to really see sort of change. And obviously it's not going to be one of those things where it's you have to wait 3 months and then suddenly it's tick,
it's magical.
Here's one upgrade. It's always going to be a continuum. So you will be getting stronger, but it takes longer than you think.
And for some people to see the kind of improvements that they're looking for, it could take 12 months or even longer, couldn't it, to passive structures?
I think that sometimes you can the only thing I worry about with this is sometimes people might get down the rabbit hole of structure and not think about function. So I think it's really important to have an appreciation of all of this, but if you're so constantly thinking about structure, that can start to as we've talked about with pain science podcasts previous to this, your idea of pain is your body's perceived threat, and it's an expression of threat. And so I do worry about sometimes people go too far down the structure rabbit hole, and this can maybe sort of fit into that. But you want to think about function, and lots of mobility changes or strength changes will be not necessarily down to structure, and pain and dysfunction is very much related to other things apart from structure. But yes, certainly it does take longer than you think with bones and cartilage especially. Anything with lower blood supply like cartilage is going to be lower.
Yep.
So that's why with Nalesh, ACL injury or any sort of significant passive structure injury, some of those guys are out for what Cogs just did syndesmosis. That's
13 or 10 to 13 weeks, or 10 to 12, I think. 10 to 12 weeks. It's just, again, it's the strengthening is the part we focus on, but it's also bulletproofing other areas in that time as well, because there's excessive time off legs and so forth. We in the sporting world look at. That's why there's such a big time limit to it. But
I think one of the the biggest concerns that the average punter has is that they don't really understand how this process sort of unfolds and how it develops, and a lot of people get frustrated and want the quicker results. Right? I know that I've been there. I've been
Me
that.
too.
Yeah, I've been that person that wanted the results to come quicker.
It's human nature.
Yeah, it is, right? And so as a strength coach, as a trainer, as a personal trainer, I've had we've gone a real flip side with the way that we do things, because we used to give people what they asked for in fear of losing them as a client, because you do that. Like when Yanni and I were back at Fitness First and at the Big Chain Gym, and there's a lot of different personal trainers there, you'd lose clients to the other trainer who poured the sugar on the on their program, basically just
gave them sit-ups to get abs, right?
Yeah, whatever. Like just told them bullshit because they knew that's what they wanted to hear.
Or just tried to, a lot of, fitness industry is about quick transformations.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so we've been trainers that delivered on what people expected, which is, okay, you want to get big muscles, we're just going to go straight into the big lifts and we're going to get you there, and the programs that just kill you, like hypertrophy programs. If you've ever done a proper hypertrophy program where that's the goal, they are so goddamn hard. They are not a walk in the park at all. It's quite different to strength training, quite different to cardio or endurance or anything like that. It's full on. And for most people, they need to do a preparation phase before that. Now, what we did after seeing so many people get injured, we kind of enforced that on people. When people wanted to come to us for a whatever goal that we could tell they weren't ready for, we said, look, that's great. That's a good goal. We'll get you there, but we're going to be doing this amount of work first. And now because we've been doing that for so long, it's so ingrained in the culture at Unity Gym that people don't really question it. And I guess we've been around for long enough now.
People have seen the results.
Yeah, people have seen the results. They can see the reviews and stuff that people that come here, they're willing to trust that process. And I think, to go back to the topic of conversation for today, that really is the role of a good strength coach. If you're going to go and pay somebody, if you're going to pay a physio, a personal trainer, or whatever it is to write programs and guide you through this process, then it's that coach's responsibility to make sure that they increase your load capacity safely and don't injure you. And it's a hard thing to do as a coach.
It's an art and it's a science.
Yeah.
Like that's the really tricky thing about this is you can come up with some exact program that looks perfect on paper, that you say, if you just do this, you'll get all the goals you want. But you're working with humans, and humans are really have so much variability in both their physical ability, their time constraints of training, their knowledge, their understanding of how to perform what you've actually given them, and also their passion and enjoyment for exercise. And there's it's so hard to get all of that right, where if you can give a perfect program, and if someone's just like, well, this is boring and takes is way harder than I want to, or not, or in the case of foundations program, often it's not hard enough. It's that art of really tapping into the person and what they enjoy to make the program compliant. And so it's hard.
And then they just need to trust the process,
Yeah.
because for week 1 might not be hard, but you replicate that to week 8.
Yeah.
Things get hard,
Yeah.
So tough and lifting, fatigue.
Yeah.
So
I think that when talking about the value of a good coach is the ability to, get that sort of understanding of what the person needs, but then also be able to communicate it in a way that gets that buy-in and also, not only communication, but when I say communication, like the ability to listen and hear what the client, or in our case, the patient, has to say about what they enjoy and what they realistically do, and trying to get an optimal sort of program together that satisfies the needs of preparing the person, but also takes into account the constraints of if I give Nalesh, who's now on not many hours sleep and now serious time constraints, something that's a 3-hour workout a day, like that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So it is an art and a science.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got a really good question here that I think you two boys could add some good value to from Jody, and Stephen, we'll get to you in a sec, brother. Jody Sim, who's one of our members here, she's actually an exercise physiologist, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Jody. She's saying, does it take a different amount of time in strengthening the ligaments and cartilage depending on power training versus strength versus hypertrophy? Jody, unless Phil and Nalesh know this straight off the bat, can you just define what you mean by power training?
Probably like Olympic lifting,
Yep.
like more speed, speed work versus strength work versus high volume work.
Mm-hmm.
And my basically thinking of this is your body adapts to what you spend your time doing. So like if you, it will, get a response and it will get good at loading so with power training, if we're thinking that's like Olympic weightlifting, then there's going to be a bit more speed and impact. And so that's conditioning your body and your cartilage to be able to take impact. Whereas if you did all hypertrophy work and then you went for a run or you tried to do a clean and jerk, like your body hasn't been adapted to that particular stimulus, and therefore you'll have a different response. But timing wise, like you'll still be
100%
adapting at the same rate, but you're adapting for different things in those.
And doesn't that suck? Like you'd really think that if you did 2 hours work a day, and you got really, really strong and jacked, that you'd be prepared for everything. But unfortunately, it just doesn't work.
And that's where movement variability is so key, and why I think the way that the Unity Gym program is really well set up is that it's got there's lots of variability within the workouts themselves, and you've got the difference between your your warm up, and then you've got your strength and flexibility together, and then you've got your the circuit at the end where you're getting a bit more impact and speed and all of those things, but then also it's changing too much sleep, but you've also got the variability of mesocycles where every 6 weeks you're changing the type of squat you're doing, you're changing the range of motion, you're changing different rep ranges, so you're building in that movement variability so that when something pops up that you want to do, like your body's been exposed to so many different things. Whereas in the past, when I've just done very much powerlifting training, so squat, bench and deadlift, low rep, like anything outside of those particular exercises were an absolute punish, and going for a run, everything hurt, and sometimes putting something in the fridge would throw my back out. It just the movement variability is what will prepare you for lots of different things. And so that's where a coach who understands the demands of a sport or the needs of a sport, like something, I think coaching for AFL players and the physio work you do with AFL players must just be like the hardest, one of the hardest sports to deal with, because like they
got to be able to do everything.
There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of sitting on a laptop and writing out what the end goal looks like, and then work back from there. Not writing the perfect program week one, and then how do I progress this? How do I regress this?
Because they need a massive vertical leap. They need a massive single leg leap. From speed. They need sprint speed. They need lateral movement. They need to be able to change direction quickly. They need to be able to take a hit as well. And tackle, and they also need to be quite flexible as well, because the kicks that they do, if you look, the flexibility required, but also to get a mark, like the way that they jump up and get their arms
shoulder
up.
mobility, strength and length,
that like movement variability of like that uncontrolled environment where it's one thing to jump up and take a catch, but then there's another thing to have someone running into you.
It's full on, isn't it? So it's an amazing sport.
Yeah, so I think like the understanding of like for Nalesh, who's so specialised in working with athletes like that, like his program might be quite different for someone who needs to be prepared for all of that versus someone who wants to be doing muscle ups or calisthenics only, where you've not got those demands of perturbation training where you're getting pushed while you're doing things and having a stability demand. So there's there's so much specificity that.
Well, I've had a really good experience with both of you guys, because when I've had injuries, notably, the 3 injuries that I've really had, actually 4 injuries that I've really had a lot of help from you guys in the last 4 years. With the forearm tendinopathy, I had a lot of help from you. The slap tear, torn supraspinatus, I had help from you. I've had help with you from the same kind of things in my other shoulder. And I had a lot of help from Leroy from my meniscus tear that I did. And it was all about just getting that load capacity up again and being able to do things that your body can handle, which is very, very different to the way that I would have approached injuries in the past. And I think the way that most people go wrong with it, which is I'm just going to rest and I'll just stop doing anything until the pain goes away, and then I'll start doing what I'm going to do, what I want to do again.
Yeah.
And that's a really, that's a bad approach, isn't it?
It's a common approach.
Yeah.
I had a member come up, hey, my back's blah, blah, blah. Should I just stop training? You were there.
Yeah.
That's the most common approach. Unfortunately, that approach has been promoted 10 years ago, which we're now obviously putting a stance to kind of create that, motion isolation. So it's okay to move and it's okay to have some sort of pain or symptoms.
A lot of it comes from doctors, doesn't it, from GPs? Because I've been to GPs where the advice was, don't do any exercise for a few weeks, you're going to aggravate it, you're going to make the injury worse.
Yeah, I mean, the understanding's changed on all fronts. Like, physio used to be a much more passive sort of profession where you'd go in and you'd get some hands-on treatment, but you wouldn't necessarily get all of this other side of things. So it's, doctors are definitely probably taking a bit longer to catch up with things because they have so many other things that they have to also know about, and they have very limited time to work with patients. But certainly it's just a general better understanding it as science progresses. So I think sort of Jodie's question about the rate of, like, how does it take different amounts of time, I think it kind of sums it up quite well, where you've got a constant rate of change and it's just a matter of what stimulus you're giving it to get a desired result. So it's like no matter what you're doing, if you're resting, that's load. It's a insufficient load, and you will atrophy and you'll get weaker, and all your structures will respond to rest, and they'll at that same rate of change be adapting to that, so you'll get weaker. But in that same amount of time, you're going to be constantly turning over tissues, constantly adapting. So if you're giving it the right stimulus, then you'll get that end goal.
And again, with ligaments and cartilage, I'm not saying you're wrong there. There is no correct phase to strengthen it. It's any stimulus is good stimulus, because you can't really isolate and strengthen a ligament or cartilage. You got to remember that they're structures of support, control, and so forth. So your muscles, movement, and so forth are going to help assist that. So you can't isolate and train those things. But any phase is going to stimulate it, no matter what you are. Obviously, if you're going to go start doing road running 50 k's a day or a week, you are going to bound to not bulletproof your cartilage and make them susceptible to injury.
If you've gone 0 to
0 to 100. So.
And this is why I really like the generalist approach, and I really think that, at least from the people that I've been exposed to myself, Ido Portal is an amazing pioneer of this concept. He's the first person that ever taught me the idea of being a generalist, and I now work with Roy Gold as well, who definitely falls in that category. He's one of Ido's students, and I find that the more specialized that somebody is, like when you look at people, I had a conversation online with one of our online members where they were talking about one of my coaches marveling at how good they are. And I said, and they were talking about goals and this and that, and I said, be careful setting your goals when you look at a specialist. I made that mistake, because when you look at a specialist and you're looking at somebody that's put all their eggs in that basket, and yes, they've produced a phenomenal result, but if you take them out of that field, there's things that they're really bad at. And I made the mistake of setting flexibility goals based on looking at specialists and thinking, I want to be able to do that, I want to be able to do that. But I was trying to train like a generalist, and it was quite frustrating not seeing myself make those massive improvements. And when I looked at how people train that are really that flexible, well, not everybody, some people are naturally a bit more gifted, but I think it's something that having this generalist approach, and it relates back to Jodie's question, where you want to do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, a little bit of power training, a little bit of strength training, a little bit of hypertrophy training. And, the best way that we like to do it is just change what the goal is with each mesocycle. Sometimes people say, this is something that I like to say as well, because one of our members, Lucio, asked this the other day. They said, I'm thinking about doing, weightlifting and raw strength training for one mesocycle, then body weight training for another. I think you get better results from training on one of those goals for 2 mesocycles, but you do an accumulation and an intensification phase, or a slower tempo phase and a faster tempo phase, but on the same modality, and then you move on to something else. I like doing that. But look, these are all things.
It's an art, it's a science. You can do, there's so many different ways of doing it, but I think bring it back to what the value of a good coach is understanding, what works.
How to do it properly.
Yeah, how to do it properly, and also what works for that person, and what they'll actually do, which is the biggest challenge in physio, is you can give them good exercises, you can give them good whatever, but will they do it? that's a matter of communication, of aligning, interests and goals, and and making it as easy as possible to execute it. So I think like with the Unity program, like in the gym, there's lots of things to make it as easy as possible to like actually do the work that is prescribed. So having we have videos of the warm-up videos of the exercises, so like that barrier to entry is really low. Same with our online, when we have physio patients both in person and online, they get a program which is has a very easy to follow thing, and that's what I think a good coach does as well, is makes it as easy as possible to actually execute.
Well, there's a structure, right?
Yeah,
and
there's plan,
stressing
structure.
asymmetries or weakness or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. If you haven't had a good coach, you don't know what you're missing out on, because if you're serious about getting results, when you've got somebody that comes up with the plan for you, that's got experience in creating those plans, and that it looks at you and your goals and where you're at objectively, not subjectively, it's just so infinitely valuable. And, I've been surprised at how basic some of my programs that I've been given by coaches seem to me when I think of what I've done in the past. But that's because the coach looks at you and identifies your weaknesses and goes, let's work on that and let's make that a strength. And what that looks like over 6 or 12 months is just magic compared to just going at it with something that you're really either not ready for or shouldn't be doing. Like, it's just not the thing you should be focusing on now, Yeah. So, any closing thoughts for today, boys?
No, I think I highlighted those little big pillars of how to value a good coach, have an end goal, has a plan, and there's a direction you're going in.
Yeah.
So.
Also highlighted how much more valuable 6 hours sleep compared to 9 hours is.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and thanks Nalesh and Phil for coming in. If you guys, anybody listening that isn't in America that wants to get any specific advice for any sporting injuries or any strategy needed to prevent injury for athletic performance, check out the guys, adpt.physio. I can personally vouch for both of them. I've worked with them both for many, many years now, and they are absolutely phenomenal. I wouldn't be able to do what I do if it wasn't for these two magicians next to me. So check them out. And if you're in Sydney, then come on down and see us. They're located in Unity Gym at North Sydney. We've got a little practice in here for them. So thanks for coming on again today,
and
fellas.
Thanks for Jody for asking a question, because we really do like questions. So everyone who is watching live, chuck them in there. And if you're not watching live, then post a question on the group and we'll get to it.
Yeah, that's right. And Stephen Laney, I will see you in about 2 minutes in the UMS online coaching group to answer any of your questions specifically. Thanks for tuning in, Laney and Stephen and Jody, and thanks for chiming in, guys. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Have a great day.
See you guys.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.